na paborito ng cancer. So, yung mga grupo ng pagkain ito, hahatiin natin sa dalawa. Insulin spiking, inflammation-inducing, at merong pangatlo, both. Pareho silang nag-spike ng insulin at nagkakaroon ng inflammation o pamamaga sa katawan. Bakit insulin spiking? Because kapag yung insulin natin ay parating mataas, ito ay magdudulot ng tawag nating anabolism sa ating katawan. Yung process ng anabolism is like building up sa ating katawan. And when there is too much anabolism, then nagkakaroon ng tumor formation, carcinogenesis or ang pagtutubo ng cancer, or just an overall na pagtubo o paglago ng isang cell line. It will usually start with injury. At kapag merong continuous injury and repair, at kapag parating mataas yung insulin, which is the major component of this parang repair mechanism, kapag sobra-sobra ito ay nagdudulot ng possible cancer formation. Now, not everybody will have the tendency to have cancer. Merong iba na by family, mas mataas yung kanilang incidence or chances of having cancer because of genetics. However, hindi ibig sabihin na kapag meron kayong family history of cancer, ay magkakaroon ka na talaga ng cancer. This is the role of what we call epigenetics. So genetics is yun yung nasa loob na ng inyong katawan, but epigenetics, ito yung mga factors that can actually help see or put an impact kung ano sa genes mo yung lalabas, kung ano yung matitrigger. Because lahat tayo, merong parehong genetics. It's just that merong iba, merong mali, o di kaya merong iba na nasusobrahan yung expression ng certain genes as compared to the others. And this is highly influenced by epigenetics. So, yung genes natin, hindi natin yan makokontrol. Pero ano yung makokontrol natin is the epigenetics. And it is largely related sa ating physical activity, sa ating lifestyle, and most importantly, sa ating food intake. So, if we are going to improve our lifestyle, if we are going to improve our physical activity, our sleep, our habits, and most importantly, we will improve our food eating, food intake, then we have better chances of manipulating kung ano man yung ma-express sa genes natin. So these foods, I know na some of it are also your favorite, but it's not a question of kung ano yung paborito nyo o hindi. It's just that these ones are the known foods na nagtatribe yung cancer cells. So if you want, you can eat this continuously. Pwede nyo itong pagpatuloy kainin. Pero dapat alam ninyo na etong mga pagkain na ito ay gustong-gusto rin ng cancer sa ating katawan if they are in there. Or if wala man, then we are actually having that increased risk or better chances of having cancer. Kasi yun nga, yun yung pinapakain natin sa katawan natin. Especially if normal cells, kapag parating yung pinapakain ng mga pagkain ito, then it can have a what we call toxicity when it comes to these food items, and this one can even be the cause as well of injury leading to eventually cancer formation. So again, yan yung ating topic for today, the 5 types of favorite foods ng cancer. We will divide it into 3, the insulin spiking, the inflammation inducing, and both. Merong isang group of foods na pareho silang nagsaspike ng insulin and at the same time, nagkukos ng inflammation. So, number 1 on the list, of course, is sugar, including honey, including muscovado, including kahit ano pang cocoa sugar, other sweeteners, especially other chemical-based na sweeteners. So, these food items are known to cause insulin spike, at kapag tumataas yung insulin natin parate, nag-i-increase yung ating chance of developing metabolic syndrome. So yung metabolic syndrome, kapag meron ka ng metabolic syndrome, yung katawan mo ay parating mataas yung taba sa katawan, cholesterol, triglycerides, VLDL, mataas na rin yung inyong visceral fat component, yun yung nagpapalaki sa tiyan, sa bewang, and nagkakaroon ka na ng signs of insulin resistance. So kapag meron ka ng metabolic syndrome, research shows that people have metabolic syndrome also have higher risk of developing cancer. And the number one culprit is sugar, honey, muscovado. Of course, these are raw materials. Yung kanilang byproducts are actually also even worse. So example would be the candies, yung mga chocolates, yung mga ice cream, yung mga sweeteners na ginagawa natin, nilalagay natin sa ating mga fraps, sa ating mga drinks, yung mga liquid syrups na nagpapatamis sa mga milk tea, sa soft drinks. So all of these are the worst kinds of sugar because they are not just sugar, they also have other inflammatory chemicals na kapag nilagay natin sa ating katawan, those are just perfect recipe for disaster. So, kung hindi kayo mabubuhay ng walang tamis, ng walang sugar, it's your choice. It's just that ayoko lang marinig at the end of it all, kapag nagkita-kita yung mga pasyente at mga doktor, like for me, for example, I have patients na sinabi sa akin, Doc, hindi naman ako kumakain ng baboy, hindi naman ako kumakain ng karne, bakit ako nagka-cancer? It's because you can just see, you can just look na actually wala sa ating top 5 yung mga red meat because hindi sila diretsang nakakakos ng cancer. It's the presence of red meat, eating red meat, but together with these top 5. Maybe kumakain ng baboy, kumakain ng karne, pero merong coke sa tabi, o di kaya merong dessert, o di kaya meron ng second group of foods natin. So, number 1 would be sugar and all the other sweeteners. Kahit brown sugar pa yan, it's still glucose, it's still fructose. At pareho-pareho pa rin itong makaka-lead into insulin spike and eventually insulin resistance. So the group 2 of foods na paboritong-paborito ng mga cancer cells would be the grains. Grains and even to a point root crops. So kasama dyan yung mais. Kahit pa mais kanin yan, mais na rice, merong bread, merong wheat flour, most flours, even potato flour, French fries, pasta, noodles. These are also favorite foods of cancer. Now, merong magsasabi na, Doc, healthy naman yung whole grain pasta. Healthy naman yung whole grain bread. Bakit nyo sinasabing healthy ito? Sinasabi itong healthy because it has a lot of fiber. And fiber is good. But if you will take these fiber together with too much starch, which is the major component of these foods, mataas na masyado yung starch na yan. At yung starch na yan, para siyang isang kadena or actually isa siyang branching trees na kapag hinihimay-himay mo, yung lalabas niyan is hundreds and hundreds of glucose molecules. So, corn, bread, root crops, most grains, if not all of the grains, are actually just still glucose, still sugar in complex form. Kaya sila tinatawag na complex carbohydrates. Yes, there are people who lived for so long na kumakain rice na hindi nagka-cancer because again, hindi lahat merong tendency nito. But if that person will have developed injury sa kanyang katawan, merong continuous insults like for example, smoking or di kaya pagbababad sa araw for 8 hours and pagkakakain ng mga pagkain ito, then these foods will be the one to feed those cancer cells. You can see later at the end of our talk kung meron kayong kilalang may cancer, titingnan nyo kung ano yung diet nila before and try to see kung gaano karami yung kinakain nilang mga pagkain na mga paborito ng mga cancer. I will also tell you a personal story about our family when it comes to cancer. So to summarize, the first 2 foods under the group insulin spiking would be the sugar and then the second would be the grains and root crops. Kasi pareho silang makakakos ng insulin spike. These insulin spike can eventually lead into insulin resistance and eventually makaka-lead into metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is the primary source of many other illness, even sa mga babae, maraming merong metabolic syndrome to start with, and eventually nagkakaroon ng ovarian cancer, nagkakaroon ng breast cancer, nagkakaroon ng brain cancer. Sa mga lalaki, nagkaroon ng metabolic syndrome for the longest time, diabetic, malaki yung tiyan, mataas yung cholesterol. After so many years, after 10, 20 years, 25 years, eventually nagkaroon ng prostate cancer, nagkaroon ng lung cancer. So maraming factors which cancer will arise kung ano yung parang overwork sa iyong katawan or nasaan yung genes na merong depekto na prone to cancer formation. But generally, all cancer cells love these foods regardless kung anong parte yan ng inyong katawan. So going to our second group, di ba? Number 1 is insulin spiking. The second one is the insulin-inducing food. So yung pangatlong food natin that's under the insulin inflammation-inducing foods would be processed meats. I think isa sa pinaka number 1 na processed meats would be hot dog. Kasi yung hotdog, eto talaga, yung wala ng semblance, wala na talagang kahit katiting na natira kung saan siya nanggaling. You cannot really say kung aling parte ng animals ito o anong animal ito. Hotdog just taste hotdog. Yes, masarap ang hotdog. Marami ding panahon sa buhay ko na akala ko mabubuhay lang ako na hotdog lamang because it's everyone's favorite. 'Di ba? Meron pang commercial in Filipinos na parang merong childhood connection sa atin na kapag nakita natin 'yan, sobrang juicy, 'di ba? But we don't know what's in there. Chicken nuggets, especially the chicken nuggets na buo na, hindi yung kayong gumawa. Kung gagawa man kayo ng chicken nuggets, try to buy chicken breast or chicken fillet. You chop it and then marami yan sa ating groups, Life Without Rice, ng mga breading recipe na low carb because the regular chicken nuggets with all of these breadings still using the flour and also adding sugar in there para mas magugustuhan ng mga bata. These things contribute to why processed meats are actually one of the most favorite, pinaka-favorite OA na, no? Na pagkain talaga ng mga cancer cells. So, nakakalungkot man, pero yung mga paborito nating sausage, tocino, chorizo, ham, especially yung mga hindi na talaga totoong karne, ito ay talagang na-process na. They are being grounded and then fino-form na lang into balls, into squares, into heart, into kung ano-ano pang shape na gusto ng mga bata. Just so it is becoming addictive. It is very convenient. Sobrang daling mabili. Sobrang dali lang din natin maluto. And very much available. Sobrang tagal ng shelf life. Hindi madaling nasisira. So it's making us go to these foods because they are convenient. And let's not wonder, yun nga lang, if we let ourselves be deceived or magpapadala lang tayo sa kanyang convenience, sa kanyang lasa, sa kanyang shelf life, sa kanyang affordability, because most of these are also affordable, then it's up to you. It's your choice. But don't ever wonder later on, in a matter of 5, 10 years, hindi man natin hinihingi, but it's already a given. It's trajectory. We can already foresee that in 5 years time, 10 years time, 15 years time, yung edad ng mga taong nagkaka-cancer ay mas bumabata ng bumabata. I personally know very young, athletic, very promising teenager namatay because of bone cancer. And kung titingnan nyo, very physically fit, ang tangkad, very active, varsity ng basketball. And then, suddenly, nagkaroon ng bone cancer. And if you look at his food, hindi uminom ng soft drinks, hindi nagda-dessert, pero yung kanin, kabundok yung kanin. So, it's these foods that are actually feeding this cancer. And kung titingnan nyo yung ulam, it's processed meats. So, those things are your favorite. It may be the favorite of your children. It may be the favorite of your granddaughters and mga anak ninyo. Pero alam nyo na kung magkakaroon yan ng injury na hindi man natin hinihingi, but if it can happen, then it can be also the favorite food of those cancer cells. If you are having problems with children, try to talk to them and tell them what it does to their body. Never underestimate the capacity of children to understand. Hindi nyo pwedeng sabihin na kasi bata pa, hindi pa naiintindihan. Yung bata, lalaki yan, mamature yan, magiging adult yan the moment you treat them as one. But as long as you continue to treat them as immature, as long as you continue to treat them as bata, as long as you continue to treat them as someone na hindi nakakaintindi, then they'll never be challenged to really understand. But if you talk to them like adults, then they will be empowered. They'll be able to make the decisions on their own. You will be surprised. Marami yan. Mga lolo, lola, tito, tita, parents in our community, in LCFF community, low carb feasting and fasting community, and life without rice, showing their children, hindi nila pinipwersa, but they just do what they do. They just eat low carb. They choose this food. And then when the children ask what they're doing, they're just trying to explain. At kahit hindi nila pinilit, the children are also the ones now removing those foods. Don't ever force your children to not eat this or not eat that, but always provide good nutritious foods available. At kapag meron pang natirang processed meats, for example, you can also have that, but don't ever serve it as if it's a reward. Don't ever serve it as if it's something good that they should look forward to. If meron man dyan, always present it, always give it with caution. Oh, this food ha, kahit masarap yan, pero hindi yan maganda sa katawan. Alam mo ba na pwede na magkaroon ka ng bukol dyan o pwedeng sasakit yung ipin mo and all those things. So, just put it with warning, with the right precautionary message, and you'll just be surprised kung gaano ka mature at kung gaano kagaling yung mga bata. Kasi sayang, because the children now are very advanced, they are actually more intelligent than their counterpart way back siguro on our time. But their capacity to really excel will be limited if we are not nourishing them with the right foods. So I hope you can choose. We will discuss later the things that you can replace it with. Don't worry. Hindi naman natin sila gugutumin at wala na silang kakainin. So number 4 food groups would be the seed oils. So canola, soy, rapeseed, sunflower, safflower. So these are low carb foods. Hindi sila nakaka-spike ng insulin. Just like processed meats. Oh, hindi pa pala dito nakalagay, spam, o di kaya luncheon meat, or kung ano bang generic niyan. So those foods are non-insulin spiking, especially yung hindi sweetened ones, except siguro yung tocino at chorizo, no? Tocino and chorizo are of course insulin spiking because alam mo, pagkain mo pa lang, sobrang tamis na. But the seed oils, it's zero carb, it's zero protein, it's 100% fats. But this is where the quality of fats will come into play. The quality of fats, the quality of oil is very important when it comes to inflammation. What are seed oils? So seed oils, by the term seed, galing sa buto. And if you can look at that, sobrang dry yan, sobrang tigas yan. How come nakaka-extract ng oil sa seed? It has to undergo processing. It has to undergo chemical and heat processing para maka-extract ng oil na yan. The first discovery of seed oils is for industrial use, para sa mga makina. But later on, they were able to find a way para mawala yung langsa nito. And when this langsa is already removed, it was already catered as something palatable. So, I hope you get to remove these seed oils. Kasi wala itong idudulot, kundi puro lamang inflammation sa ating katawan. Yes, they are usually marketed as vegetable oil. And I think that's the scariest part because it is being labeled as healthy. Kasi nga daw mababa sa saturated fats. When in fact, the concept that saturated fat is bad is actually also faulty. Because saturated fats, how can it be bad? Na tayo mismo, yung katawan natin, gumagawa ng kanyang saturated fats. Saturated fats is natural. It's not bad. But the moment your body is already inflamed, these saturated fats will become your recipe, your ingredient for gallstone formation, for tumor formation, for atherosclerosis plaque, for blockade in your arteries. But if you don't have inflammation in your body to begin with, those saturated fats can become the essential hormones na kailangan ng katawan natin. It can be used as repair for our skin, for our cells. It can be made into vitamins sa ating katawan mismo. Those are important. At yung mali sa oils na yan, it's actually these oils. They introduced it before as replacement for saturated fats. Kasi before, yung fast food noon, they are using tallow o di kaya lard. Okay? So they're using animal fat. And they're okay. Yung fast food nga noong unang panahon is not that worse. Kahit pa meron niyang wheat flour, kahit meron niyang bread, it's not as worse because right now these fast foods are also using seed oils, and if they are using seed oils, then they are using these perfect ingredient of both insulin spiking and inflammation inducing na pagkain. So try to avoid that when you can. And that's the second group, the inflammation inducing, the processed meat and seed oils. And lastly, it may come as a shock for everyone, but fruits and fructose is also a favorite food of cancer cells. So cancer cells thrive on glucose, and fructose is another form of simple sugar na hindi actually napaprocess ng katawan natin. Only our liver processes that. At kapag yung extra glucose natin ng katawan, it is actually being transformed also into fructose kapag nasusobrahan. At ano yung nangyayari kapag sobrang taas na ng fructose natin sa ating liver? Our liver cannot accommodate those fructose. So yung gagawin niya, i-convert niya ito into triglycerides, and it can be converted even into other byproducts. Alam nyo ba na merong pathway yung fructose into triglycerides, into fats, and also into uric acid? There is that pathway. Hindi lang galing sa proteins, hindi lang galing sa purines and pyrimidines yung ating uric acid. Our fructose will also have a alternative pathway. It will have an alternative pathway na magkakaroon siya ng byproduct na uric acid. And that is another problem. We will talk about that later on as we discuss on kidney problems. Pero fruits and fructose, fruits are generally sweetened naturally by glucose and fructose. So the glucose is insulin spiking, and the fructose is inflammation inducing when taken too much. Because yes, it can be healthy, it can be good, but when you are eating this, especially together with all those other four food groups, then those fruits you cannot already accommodate, you cannot already get the full benefits because yun nga, it's already loaded with too much inflammation and insulin inducing byproducts. So fruits and fructose are under both insulin spiking and inflammation inducing. So if we will have a summary, the 5 types of the most favorite foods of cancer cells would be this one. Nasaan na yun? Hindi natin na-summarize, no? Yeah. So it would be the sugar, honey, all the sweets, the starchy foods, even if they're high in fiber, the processed meats, the seed oils, and lastly, the fruits and fructose. So ano yung pwede nating i-replace dito? For sugar and honey, these are not essential. The best way to replace them with is nothing or salt. So I know nakaka-shock pakinggan na bakit mo i-replace ng asin ang maalat yung matamis. It's because sugar and glucose, sweets, it's nutritionally not essential. Mabubuhay tayo ng walang sugar. Sometimes when we crave for something sweet, it's actually our body telling us we need something. And that something is most commonly electrolytes in the form of sodium. So we call that as the salt fix. So you just get a pinch of salt and then put it in your mouth, observe for 5 minutes, you will see. Kung ayaw nyo yan, just like my brother, hindi niya kaya yung whole pinch of salt kasi parang sumasama yung tiyan niya. So he mixes it with water. So salt water, and then inom ng konti, you will see the craving for sugar will disappear. Next would be corn, bread, rice, wheat, flour, pasta. Right now, if gusto nyo yung parang filling, yung bulk of filling, especially yung mga bread and pasta, meron ng low carb alternatives ngayon gawa sa coconut flour and almond flour. So those things are gluten-free. It's also grain-free, and it's very low carb, but it's also not essential, ha. So if you just need replacement, but generally kung hindi kayo dependent with this one, like my brother again and me somewhat, I can now live without this. Not the usual before na dapat everyday meron kang nakakain ito. No, not anymore. So there's no need for replacement for this. But if you feel like nagsa-transition pa lang kayo, nagsisimula pa lang kayo na you want some replacement, then there's a lot available that you can replace it with. Meron tayong video, I think, kung ano yung mainam na pamalit sa kanin, sa tinapay, and sa pasta. Meron tayong ginawang video about that. You can look that up in YouTube and in our Facebook page. But generally, if you're already adapted to low carb way of life, low carb way of eating, there's no need for this. Just know na if hindi, may pag-asa. Merong paraan. And for the processed meats, throw everything na processed sa inyong refrigerator, sa inyong pantry, or the moment na maubos sila, then replace it with real food. Instead of hot dog, bumili ng pork chop. Instead of chicken nuggets, bumili ng chicken breast. Instead of sausage, bumili ng karne. Instead of tocino, magpagawa ng tocino cut. Tocino cut lang, but hindi kailangan nakatimpla ito tocino. Kung kailangan ng chorizo, gumawa ng sarili mong ground pork and itimplahin mo ito. Just salt and pepper. Those are really, really good. So you eat red meat alone or with vegetables or with other healthy foods, but not in this kind of way na processed na marami ng chemicals. Other meat, other replacement that you can do, seafood. So, kailangan pa ba nating isa-isahin yung seafood? So, all seafood. They're all okay. They're all good. And don't overdo just one kind of meat. If you can eat different kind of meats in a span of 1 week, then much better. Also, you can incorporate just 100 grams of liver in a week. That's already good enough for your needed B complex, iron, and most of the essential vitamins to complete your whole meat package. For the seed oils, remove that. You can use coconut oil instead, o di kaya butter. Kaya lang, madaling nasusunog yung butter, no? Pero masarap. And then tallow and lard. So, taba ng baka and taba ng baboy, you can use that for cooking. Meron yan si Sir Tony, yung isa sa mga very active member natin ng Life Without Rice. Meron siyang ginawang post doon on procedure kung paano makagawa ng sarili mong talo, yung taba ng baka. You can buy 1 kilo and then you can process it sa bahay nyo, and then you can have a ready-to-go healthy oil that is good for your heart. Yes, it's good for your heart. It's not good for your heart if kakainin mo ito kasabay ng kanin, kasabay ng bread. But alone and together with good sources of food, you can be successful in even having lower risk of heart attack. And when it comes to fruits and fructose, if you want the fiber, vitamins, and minerals that are in there, eat vegetables instead. Mas masustansya yung gulay as compared to fruits and fructose. And you choose vegetables that are what we call as non-starchy vegetables. Mababa sa starch so that yung glucose ay mababa din. And when it comes to these, ito isa sa mga pinakamalungkot na nangyari in our family because yung papa namin, I told you, I'll share to you a personal story. Yung papa namin for the last 25 years, he was diabetic. So lumaki kami na forever kaming merong metformin, glyburide, glimepiride, at kung ano-ano pang gamot sa diabetes sa aming bahay. Naglilimit siya ng kanyang rice, naglilimit siya ng kanyang bread, ng soft drinks, pero hindi siya naglilimit ng fruits because kasi nga, yun nga sabi nila, hindi nakakapagpataas ng blood sugar yung fruits. At nakita din niya, hindi nagsaspike yung kanyang blood sugar sa prutas. So, eventually, yun lang yung parati niyang kinakain. Yet, after 20 years of taking multiple medications for up to 5 times na siguro, 5 kinds of blood sugar lowering drugs na siguro yung iniinom niya, hindi na talaga nakayanan, and that's the time that he was already put into insulin. So for the last 5 years, naka-insulin lang siya. At after that time, mas nagiging conscious siya sa kanyang kinakain. Parati siyang nag-check ng kanyang blood sugar. Wala siyang pakialam sa sakit. So he knows exactly which foods will not spike his blood sugar. And during that time, he was traveling, pumupunta siya sa farm, pumupunta siya sa mga kung saan-saan. At kapag merong mga tao sa farm na nagsasabi kung ano yung gusto niyang dalhin sa kanya, gustong pasalubong, isa lang yung sinasabi niya, prutas, prutas. It's always fruit. So he ate mostly just, I think, more than 50, 60, 70% of the time, puro prutas lang yung kinakain niya. And in 2018, no, 2017. In 2017, yun na nga, he eventually died. Namatay yung papa namin. And it's not because of diabetes. Kasi yung sugar niya, controlled. Kasi nga, nag-i-insulin siya, di ba? But alam niyo ba kung anong cause ng kanyang death? It's liver cancer. So, hindi siya umiinom. He doesn't take alcohol. Kung umiinom man siya, very, very seldom. Maybe once or twice a year kapag merong okasyon lang. But he is not a drinker. Hindi rin siya, nag-avoid na rin siya ng other foods. Even the meat, ina-avoid na rin niya, especially na nag-insulin na siya. But he was overdoing his fruits. And this only goes to show how fruits, when overeaten, okay? When overconsumed. Because sometimes, nasosobrahan talaga tayo because we are holding on to the fact na yung prutas ay healthy. It can really induce both insulin spike because of the glucose component, especially banana, mango, yun yung mataas sa glucose component. Other fruits are mostly fructose, and it's inflammation inducing. Kasi yung liver natin, after it becomes fatty liver, too much fats, it can go into steatohepatitis. Ito'y mamamagana. At kapag ito'y may pamamagana, it can even lead into liver cirrhosis. Namamatay na yung cells. At yung pagkamatay na ng cells, if patuloy yung injury na ginagawa natin, yung pagkain natin ng sobra-sobra sa lahat-lahat at pag-iinom natin ng maraming gamot, yes, a factor also maybe of those liver cancer could be the 20 long years of all of those medications combined na kanyang iniinom. And that, after cirrhosis, it can go into liver cancer. So that's what happened. And yun nga, I'm not painting the image of my father, pero yung usual niya sinasabi sa amin, if I can leave you something, if I cannot leave you with things to follow, at least I can leave you the things that you shouldn't follow, that you shouldn't do. And he was okay with it. He always tell us growing up na kung hindi man ako perfectong tatay, at least I showed you the things that you don't have to do or you can avoid. And I'm sure he will be happy na his death, even if it cost him death, it will not be for no use. It will not be of no use because we will learn from it. And we will learn from it by looking at what he did when it comes to his food intake. And as much as we think na he could have thrived with low carb, I'm sure he has this mental strength. Wala nang mas mentally strong pa sa kanya if he is committed to one thing. If merong person who knows my father, they know how passionate he is when he becomes attached to one thing. And I'm sure he could have thrived very well with low carb. But I think that's already too late for him. But it's not too late for us. It's not too late for all of us. And I hope we can look at our food intake, not just for ourselves, but also for our loved ones. Not just think of what we will feel whenever we eat that food today, but look into the impact of those foods in the long run. Not in 1 month time, not in 2 months time, not in 3 months time, in 5, 10, 20 years, and so forth. So I hope you get to know the 5 types of favorite foods of cancer cells. And if any of these are also your favorite, I suggest you look for another favorite that is in our JGC Rojo food list, the safe list. And also, speaking of cancer, we will have a 21-day disease-specific LCF masterclass for those who are looking into seeing kung ano yung pwedeng impact ng low carb and fasting sa mga taong may cancer and how we can maximize it to our benefit. So meron tayong ganyan. I will show you. I think bukas na tayo magsisimula because with our masterclass, we usually have a weekly live Q&A. So bukas po yung first day ng live Q&A interactive sessions natin. So this is the poster for that. It's going to be a 21-day class. And don't worry if huli nyo na nakita yung video na ito. It's an ongoing. The moment it's already in our groups, it will be there hopefully forever. Kung hindi mawawala, and we will transfer to a website in case you're interested to get to know more about cancers and tumors and how we can maximize lifestyle nutrition into either avoiding it or stopping its growth kasi hindi man natin kayang puksain diretsa yung cancer. But one thing we can do is we can starve it. Pwede natin itong gutumin by first knowing kung ano yung kanyang mga paboritong pagkain. So if you wish to know more, just message our Facebook page. Our admins will get back to you. LCF Masterclass by yours truly. I hope to see you there tomorrow. And you can also join our free Facebook groups. These are free groups, Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community, and also Life Without Rice. And for faster transactions, I think you can also ask our admin Angela at 0917-993-1239 if ever wala kayong Facebook or nasa YouTube kayo. So those are the 5 important and most favorite foods of cancer. And sana nga lang, I know marami din akong paborito dyan, but I'm relearning in order for me to thrive. The normal cells, the healthy cells will thrive and not the cancer cells. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. I'll see you again in our next video. Remember to always stay low carb so that we all stay safe. Maraming salamat po.